Well, good morning. I think we have a small crew here today for our office hour session, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and record the session today so that other people can listen and they may have similar questions. So again, for folks that don't know, my name is Elizabeth Leslie and I'm the Communications Manager for the League of Women Voters of California, and I'm help managing our new My League Online website project, also affectionately referred to as Milo. So today on the line, we have our superstar customer service rep, Amaris LeBron, and we also have Rain Michaels, who is also deeply involved in our project and as our tech vendor and support person, and will be leading us today as we answer some questions live. So with that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Rain and welcome, I believe Andrea's here and perhaps some other people. We will have you on mute momentarily until Rain does some discussion and then we open up for questions. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Rain.
Hi, good morning. So the purpose of these office hours is twofold. The first purpose that we have is to give you the opportunity to ask questions that are specific to what you're doing. And then the second purpose is to identify any areas where the system needs to be improved, whether or not they are bugs that you've found because you are trying to do something that we didn't try to do necessarily in our testing, since there are a million different approaches anybody could take. And then also just areas where you are having more trouble than we anticipated because the documentation might not be ready or might not be adequate, or because the system, the user interface isn't ideal. So these are things that we're trying to identify, and these office hours give us the opportunity to figure these things out and make sure that we put on the list of items to do the fixes for whatever difficulties are appearing. The other thing that we're incredibly aware of is that this new system is a huge transition from the previous way of working with your interface. So knowing that, we also want to make sure that we're making this as smooth as possible. So with that being said, I believe that at this moment, Andrea, you have the floor. So I'd like to turn it over to you and find out what questions you are coming up with as you're working with Milo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thanks very much. Our main issue at this point is that we went into the website of the company that where our domain name is registered and set up website or web forwarding. And we're trying to make sure that our URL points to the new website. And what's happened is that we have our website is just down. So I've been trying to work with this company, Network Solutions, and they are telling me, here's what they said in an email I just got. It says, as website and hosting providers continue to improve their security measures, some no longer allow a domain name to be masked when forwarding from another name. I set it up so that our own domain name would be the one that people see rather than our own vanity.
Okay,
would
yeah,
be the one people see.
That's why that's why you're having an issue. So the reason why what people are going to see is not your own domain name is because we have everything under SSL, which it's a secure socket layer, which is a security measure.
Sure.
If you look at the site, you see, if you look at the URL up here, it's very small, but you'll see that little tiny lock, and that little lock says, okay, this is a secure site. So if people come to this site, their info is secure. Now the thing is that an SSL certificate is domain specific, and it's really kind of impossible from a resource standpoint for LWVC to provide SSL certificates individually and configure SSL certificates individually for each and every league's domain. So that's there are a number of reasons. This is one reason why your URL, your official URL, that your canonical URL that people actually see in the URL bar needs to be my.lwv.org/Wisconsin, is because that's the only way that we can put it under SSL.
Okay.
in a manner that's resource manageable. The other reason, though, the other reason that it benefits you to use my.lwv.org/Wisconsin as the URL that's in the bar is because it gives you a significant search engine optimization boost, because lwv.org is such a long-standing trusted URL that many sites across the country and many people across the country interact with. So it has a huge, a very high level SEO score, whereas your individual URL is so specific to a region that its SEO score would be significantly lower no matter how good of a job you did with your SEO. So, and then there's another piece, which is that by using my.lwv.org/Wisconsin, you have the actual word Wisconsin in your URL, which is also going to give you a huge SEO boost. So what you want to do, you don't want to mask it so that it says, I think it's LWVWI is your URL. You don't want to mask it so that that's what people see, because then you won't be able to have any of that. And also, as Network Solutions told you, that's no longer actually acceptable. What you need to do, you have two different options, and one of which requires a budgetary approval from Elizabeth, and one which does not. So the first option, the one that we're typically recommending to people, is that you simply forward. You're not masking, you're just forwarding with a 301 redirect, lwvwi.org to my.lwv.org/Wisconsin. So basically what then happens is, when the user types in lwvwi.org, then the host, which is, I believe in your case, Network Solutions, sorry, not the host, the registrar, which I believe in your case is Network Solutions, says, oh, right, this URL isn't actually servicing a website. This URL is telling people to actually go to my.lwv.org/Wisconsin. The other option, which requires budgetary approval from Elizabeth, is that you could have your URL, you can basically do what's called a rewrite. So on your side, you point your URL, you change your DNS on your URL to point to our server, and we would have to give you the IP address for that. And then what then happens is, when someone types in lwvwi.org, then the domain resolves to our server, and then we have a rewrite rule on our side that says anytime you see lwvwi.org, rewrite that to my.lwv.org/Wisconsin.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I am fine with just taking off this masking. In the Network Solutions web forwarding website, there's a thing where I can I clicked the box for hide or mask the destination URL when forwarding. So I'll just unclick that, and that should do it, right?
I believe it should. I'm not 100% familiar with Network Solutions, because that's one that I use. I've used it, but I've used it very rarely. So
okay.
I believe that should be fine. If you're interacting with their help, what you're basically just looking for is a 301 redirect.
Okay. Another thing that they mentioned is that, you know, Milo is an HTTPS site, which is a good thing. That's what we want. But the way their thing is set up, I don't know if I can, you know, it says HTTP:// and it doesn't have the HTTPS.
Oh, that's fine. Right, that's fine. Our server rewrites, if somebody comes to http:// it'll rewrite to HTTPS.
All right, okay. Then I'm probably good. I think this sounds good. Thanks very much for your help.
And I'm just
I apologize, I'm going to have to get off the phone. I'm going to have to get off the webinar at about 1:45. So.
Okay, well, let's get as many of your questions answered as we can. Hopefully you have some other little questions or things that you'd like to complain about.
I'll just listen at this point. Thanks so much for taking my question.
Okay, absolutely. Well, Elizabeth and Anmarie, I believe at this point that means that the two of you could actually ask questions. If there's, especially you, Omri, says you've been working with the interface, you may have some questions about how you'd like to ideally do things.
Let's see, I might be able to also share some questions maybe that we've gotten over our ticketing system.
That sounds like a great idea.
Okay, let's see. One of the first questions from Rain Tyler with logins. First problem, an error that I made on an event.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a bug that she's basically discovered without realizing it, and we have a ticket in our Unfuddle system for that bug, an urgent ticket that Leela is already working on. So just so that Andrea is aware and anybody listening to the recording, hopefully by the time somebody reviews the recording, we'll have this solved. But right now, the site is representing time zone based on the user's settings. So if a user isn't logged in, then it's seeing the site settings, which is Pacific time. So that's obviously a problem because in the case of Rain Tyler, Sussex County is in Delaware, and if a non-authenticated user is seeing an event in Pacific time, that's very confusing. So that's a bug that we're working on resolving.
Awesome.
And then the other thing that she brought up is just actually part of another ticket as well. Or no, the other thing that she brought up is just that some people apparently didn't receive their welcome email from the system. Unfortunately, that's probably beyond our control. That's probably spam settings on their side.
Okay.
But I've asked her to provide the email addresses for those people so that we could at least look at our logs to make sure that those emails did trigger.
All right. Let's see. There was a question about the donate button, the contribution button on the sidebar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's look at, let's be Andrea. Andrea, just that you know, only Maurice, Elizabeth, and I are capable of pretending to be you. But we are capable of pretending to be you. So right now I'm pretending to be you, and I'm going to go to your site so that we can talk about whatever the question is regarding this donate button.
So being able to, the question was about being able to edit either the URL that it would redirect to.
Okay. Okay, so this is actually
you might want to add to your explanation, Rain, when you're going through this is if they want to add a join button there, how would they go about doing that? Basically, how do you mess with that sidebar? What would be the appropriate instructions? And I see Wisconsin looks fabulous and has already added some things there to the left sidebar. So it's looking good. But if you could review that, Rain, that would be great for this recording for folks to view later.
Okay, I absolutely can. I'm not going to do that as Wisconsin, though, because I don't want to mess with Andrea's work. So I'm going to go in and do it as Rainbow Bright. And we'll go to my demo local. I really should have thought of that before I named it demo local because that's so hard not to say. Crazy demo. All right. So the first, they're actually two completely separate questions. They sound related because you know you're thinking join and donate, but they are completely unrelated because the donate button is part of the template and will be there no matter what. That was decided early on by the Milo development team, not development team, but the kind of Milo administrative team decided early on that that demo button was going to be there no matter what and linked to a donate page. So how do you change what that actually links to is something that we can certainly discuss. The other question about adding a join button has to do with how you edit that sidebar. And you can actually put, as you can see, you can put whatever you want into that sidebar, because I have pictures of my family in the sidebar on the local demo league. But I could put a join button or anything else there if I wanted to. So let's start with modifying this donate button right here. First of all, you can't directly modify that donate button. It is what it is, and it always links, no matter what, it will always link to your league's URL/donate. So in the case of demo local, it's demo state, so the state that that demo is in, and then demo local, and then /donate. That will always be the URL of this specific button, that this specific button links to. So the first step in modifying what you land on there is you need to decide, do you actually want people to land on a page on your site when they click on that? Or do you want people to be directed off of your site when they click on it? If the answer is the second one, off site, then what you actually want to do is create a ticket by emailing support@milo.freshdesk.com or just milo@lwvc.org. Either one will work. And you just want to send them an email and say, can you please redirect my donate page from here to, and then give the URL that you want people to end up on. Because that's something that Amaris or Elizabeth or I will need to do. It's an extremely quick action, and Amaris, I can show you how to do it if you're not, if I haven't done so yet. But it's an extremely quick action for us to do, but it is something that we have to do. You can't do it yourself. So that's if you want it to go completely to somewhere else. If you want it to go to a page on your site, such as a form, that isn't the one that was created when the stub content was created, then what you want to do is you want to go to your content under Administer League, Manage Content, and then from there you want to find the stub donate page that was corrected. That was created. So the donate page that came into being when this site was built, which will usually be the first piece of content ever created on your site. Now, you don't actually have to scroll down as I did to find it. You can just type in donate up here in these search fields, and then it will find that donate page for you. And then what you want to do is you actually want to delete this particular page. So I just clicked on it, and then I'll choose delete from operations, and then I'll click execute. I'm not actually going to do this because I don't actually want to, but I could then click execute and it will delete that page. Now the reason I want to do this is because when this content was created, that stub donate page was created with the URL that I want. And what I want to do next is create a new page that has the URL that I want, that button links to, so that that button will go to my new page. I can't create a page that has a URL that's already in use. So that's why the first step is deleting the existing donate page that you don't want anymore. Then your next step will be to go ahead and create the new piece of content that you want, which I'm guessing might be a form instead of a page. So you'll click Add Form, and then the really important piece here is when you first create the page. Later on, when you're editing the page, you can change the title. But the very first time you create this piece of content, your title must be Donate. Spelled correctly, no other words in there, just simply Donate. And that's what's going to generate that URL when you save it. Now, later on, after you first save this, you can go back in and edit it and change the name of the page, and that's fine, because what will happen is that the site will automatically create a redirect from the old URL to the new URL if the URL of that page changes. So you don't need to worry about that. But when you first create the page, you do need to make sure that it says Donate. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
No?
Yes.
Yes, go for it.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, on the Wisconsin page, I would like my donate button to go to our, if you look at our donate page, it has a lot of text. I would like to keep that page with a different name, something like, I could clone it maybe and keep it as many ways to support the league, something like that. And then have the donate button go straight to our contribution form.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean in my
Yeah.
site?
Oops. Okay, so I was trying to manage content as somebody else, so it's,
Yeah, you want okay.
yeah, I want you. Okay, so now I'm you again.
Okay.
Okay, so you have your donate page here with a lot of text on it, and then you're creating the form. Now, have you already created that form?
Yeah, if you
Yes,
click
right here,
on
contribution form.
Click on that, and this is the
Okay.
form that I would like it to go to.
Okay.
I would like the donate button to go to that. In fact, I would prefer, if you go back to the donate page, I would prefer to have the PayPal thing go to that, but that's okay as it is.
Okay, so in this case then, what since you've already built these pages,
Mm-hmm.
the easier thing to do is to actually have I can just go ahead, since you're the only person on the office hours, I can go ahead and change these URLs on these 2 pages for you right now, and then that'll fix it. So we're gonna, okay, so your donate page, let's call this Wisconsin Donate. We just need to change what it says.
So you're just
yeah, let's do give.
renaming it.
How about is give good?
Sure. Or that's the page that's many ways to support the league. So that's fine.
Right. Or support maybe.
Sure.
Okay. So now I'm gonna send it changing URL, and then this is gonna create. This is something that you will not do for yourself. What I'm doing right now. So I'm just doing it since you're the only one on the call.
Okay. And all the people who will watch the recorded one, right?
They'll see it, but everybody know that what I'm doing right here is something that you will do for yourself. If you already built content and you need to rename things, then that's something to give to the Milo team.
Right. Do not try this at home.
Yeah, definitely do not try this at home. All right. So now, I'm just gonna rename this donate.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and let it do a redirect just in case you have something linking to it. And say, I didn't put the note in there, but so now this path should be donate. All right, so now this should do what you are asking for. Here you go.
Okay, so you clicked, that went really fast. You clicked on the donate button and this is what you got, right? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I'll do that again for you. So click.
Click.
And boom.
And there it goes. That's very good. And if you click on donate in the menu, where does that go? Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, next question. Oh wait, next question was actually already asked, and that was brought up by Elizabeth. So working with this sidebar for the purposes of the recordings. So, and let's just add a join button to the local league. Sidebar join button. And we'll go ahead and masquerade as, well, not that. Okay. So let's go to a league that I actually have control over and not Washington, because they probably wouldn't like it if I went ahead and changed whatever they have. All right, so right now we're talking about editing the sidebar. I have pictures of my family here, but what we really want to have first is a join button. So if you want to edit your sidebar, you actually need to do that by editing your League landing page. This is a little bit confusing, but there are a few things that are managed by managing your League landing page. What shows up here at the top of your site on every page is managed on your League landing page. Your sidebar is managed on your League landing page, and the content in your footer, any contact information, that's all managed in your League landing page as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new draft, and then I'm going to scroll down here to this collapsed field set, which says sidebar content. And I'll click on that and open it up. Now, I have embed code in here already. These are items that I've placed into my sidebar. And I can go ahead and add new items if I want. Let's say I wanted to add more embed code or formatted text. I could add that here, and I can also rearrange the items that I've already added or remove items by just dragging these handles or clicking remove. But there is this first field here, which is sidebar content, and this is what you're going to use if you're not doing anything with embed code. You'll just go ahead and use sidebar content. And adding a join button is something that you can do without embed code, because what you're actually adding is an image, and you're linking that image to your join page. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I already have a join button that I want to use that's very specific, that I've designed, then I can use that. But I might as well first check and see if somebody's already created a join button that I can make use of. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go into the media library. Let me just do that again. I'll click on the media library link here. I've placed my cursor in this field where I want this button to appear. And then in my list of tools up here, the last one is add media, which will be used for any kind of media, whether it's an image or a PDF or some other kind of file. And then if I created my own button, I can upload it here. If I know that somebody in my league has already uploaded a button, I can find it here. But most importantly, I can look through all of the files on the system to see what people have already added. And in this case, I'm going to search for something called join and see what already exists. So it looks like there's actually two join buttons. Well, there's three, because there's a blue one too. There's two that look red, like the one that's already there. And then there's this blue one, which maybe I'll go ahead and use the blue one since the donate button is red. I'm just going to select that and click submit. Now it's going to take me to a form where I can change things like the alt text if I want to. And I'll submit it, and it pops it right there into this field for me. Now it's showing up pretty huge. That's probably bigger than I want it. So I can resize it if I want to. I don't have to, but I can resize it. And then I'm going to select it, and I'm going to link it. Actually, before we'll come back to link it. First, I'm just going to select it, and then in here under Styles, I'll tell it to center. And then let's go ahead and save that, and we'll come back to link it. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to take this directly to published. And save. And now, if we look at this, there's my massive join button. It's still a little big, so I might want to resize it a little bit more. But it's not linked, but it's sitting right there in the sidebar for me. If I click on New Draft, I can go ahead and modify this. So I'll go back down to Sidebar Content. And now I want to link this to my join page. So I will select it. Notice that I just kind of clicked and dragged so that it would be highlighted, the same way that you would select text. And then I'm going to click on this Link to Content button right here. And I'm going to find the join page in my site. And hopefully this works. There we go. So I just typed in join in the title. I clicked apply. And now it shows me my join page. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And did you see how it popped up here? Ignore what happened in the background, but up here at the top where it says link URL, it popped a node ID, a number, node, and then a specific unique number in there. And that's going to be the link that it's going to link to. It's using the ID, so the database ID of that particular piece of content instead of the URL, just in case I ever change the URL. The ID will never change, but the URL might change. So it's using that, and then I'll click Insert Link. And now if I scroll down, this is actually linked. I can tell it's linked because if I click on it, now the Unlink button is bolded so that I can see that this action could be taken if I wanted to remove the link from here. I'll go ahead and scroll down, linking join button. I'll take this directly to published and save. Now, if I scroll down here, this is linked, and if I click on it, it will take me to the join page. Any questions about that?
This is Andrea, as you might have guessed. We have on our site, we put on the Facebook like and share and that sort of thing on our sidebar. Now those we had to use embed code, and I'd like to center them. Right now they look kind of pushed to one side. How do you do that with the embed code?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So once you're using embed code, you have full HTML, which means that you have to write it yourself.
So I would have to write that code in. Well, okay.
Well, that's not really a problem. It's just a little bit harder. If you're an advanced user, it's not that hard. But if you're not a coder, it might look a little bit daunting, and that's okay. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So here's your stuff right here, which looks great, by the way. So I'm gonna, oh, you have a draft already that you've created.
Yeah, I just kind of went into it and was trying.
Okay, so if I publish the draft that you've created, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think it's any different because, well, whatever.
Right. So we're going to go down to your sidebar content here, which you already have. Now, for some reason, this isn't showing up the way that you formatted it. So I'm going to see what's going on here. Okay. So first of all, I would actually recommend that instead of formatting this with bold and italic, that you use title.
All right.
Because that gives you better semantic markup. The the browser then knows what type of an item it is. So if a screen reader is reading it, for example, it'll read it as kind of like an outline element and say, oh, okay, this is a header for a group of things that you can find out about or do. So so in that sense, I would remove all of this kind of formatting. Oops, remove the special, remove the center, and remove all of that. And then where it says paragraph, instead of paragraph, I would choose a heading level. In this case, probably heading 3.
Okay.
And then we'll go back in and center it. Now, if this formatting doesn't take, then I know that we have a little bit of a bug, so we'll address that bug. But so just in terms of nice formatting, those are a couple things that I would do.
Okay.
Now looking at your actual embed code that you've put in here, this is where you would have to do a little bit of coding, and you did this beautifully, by the way. I'm super impressed. So a little bit of coding.
Well, it took about 10 tries.
But you did it.
Thanks.
So a little bit of coding in order to make it happen. So when I centered this, I used the list of styles that we have available, and I chose center. So what I can do is find out, okay, well, what is the class that's actually causing that to be centered? The class is a little identifier inside of the tag itself, the tag that is marking up what's happening here. Now, you don't see any of that markup when you're looking at the WYSIWYG. You just see what it's supposed to look like. If I disable rich text, this little button right down here, if I click on that and disable rich text, now I see the markup. Zoom in on that so that you can see it a little bit better. And inside of my tag, I have this thing that says class equals center. And that's what's causing it to center. So I'm going to copy that and say, oh, okay, that's the class. I'll just go ahead and copy that. Let me zoom back out so that we can see a little bit more clearly here. And now I'm going to go back down here. And in here, I'm going to paste that into the first tag in each of these items. You know what, not in the href here, I'll put a div around this. That's maybe a little bit more coding than you want to know, but for those people who do know a little bit of HTML, that will be pretty straightforward. And then down here in this P tag for paragraph, make sure there's a space. So I've just added that in there. And now I'm going to go ahead, and I also saw some commas in yours, which I'm not sure if that's a bug or if that's in your code here, but I think that might be a bug, but which we can fix pretty quickly after the call. Okay, so from here now, I'm going to go under publishing options, updating the sidebar to center, done by Rain Michaels as, okay. And then I'll take it straight to published unless you object.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and save this. And then we'll scroll down and take a look. And so you're actually seeing not the embed code right now. I'm just going to reload it. That's a little trick. Okay, so one of them centered and the other one didn't. So we need to work with that.
Yeah, I see those commas too. That's
so the commas, I don't think that they're in your code. I think that they might be a bug. So we can address that after the call. Don't worry about those commas. We'll fix those. And if you ever see something like that you're like, wow, what's going on there? That just might be a bug. Just report it.
Okay.
But that being said, so we successfully centered one of them and we didn't center the other. So that means that we might need to play with that second one a little bit.
Okay.
But you notice how the first time I saved it, it didn't show you the embed code. It didn't show you the code. It just showed you the fallback. That's always going to happen with embed code the first time you save it.
Okay.
So whenever you see that, whenever it doesn't show the way that you want it, reload it again. Just refresh, because the embed code actually needs to load the first time you're seeing something cached that's not pulling in that embed code. So the second time it'll always load. It's the first time. As long as everything's correct, it'll load the second time and it won't load the first time.
Here's the, oh, go ahead.
So you know, we'll just want to play with this other one to center it a little bit to get that centering. And what I'm going to do, since it didn't work, by putting that center tag directly into the code that was already there, where I put it, see how I put it right here? It might not work because this is specifically coming from Facebook, and I actually see that now, the div closes. So I'm going to remove it from here, and then I'm going to wrap the whole thing in a new div. And put that center tag into that whole thing, and then we'll go ahead and save this one.
There were two of them.
Yeah, the other one was centered.
Okay.
Right, so I just wrapped the entire thing.
Yeah.
And let me just actually make sure.
Yeah, there were three in all. There was Twitter and two
the whole
Facebook.
thing there. This whole thing is wrapped, and then this whole one is wrapped as well. So yeah, they're all fully wrapped. We'll go ahead and publish that and save. And then again, we're going to see it's not going to look right. We'll refresh, and it'll look good. There it is.
Okay. All right. You have time for one more question?
I believe we do. Maurice? Are we okay with that?
All right.
All right.
All right. If you look at where you have the screen pointed right now, where it says join us, and then there's a little star and it says read more. I would actually like to have that look more like the one underneath the donate one, where the read more is over to the right, and I don't know what the little star is either.
Yes, I need to fix that. I noticed that on your page. Most people aren't actually using Pages, so I hadn't realized that that wasn't formatted correctly. So I was actually trying to fix that before this webinar started, and then just ran out of time. But it'll be fixed shortly after, along with the commas.
Okay, will I have to go in at that point?
You won't have to do a thing.
Terrific. Thank you.
It'll just be fixed.
All right. Thanks much.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, you have answered quite a number of my questions, so thank you very much.
Wonderful. Amaris, anything else that you wanted to see about answering on this call from the questions that have been coming up?
I have one, Rain. This is Elizabeth. There have been a couple questions about images. And although on one hand, folks love having one image as the main image because it looks fabulous on the front page. And when the article is promoted to the front page, it looks great. But often that main image gets blown up to like the full column width, which sometimes is too big once people click through to the article. Yep. What can you suggest for people to do instead of that? Or is there a way that you can suppress that main image from appearing on the article page?
Okay, so that's a good question. I actually responded, you turned that into an Unfuddled ticket, and I responded to you on that with options. We kind of need to change the feature itself in order to accommodate having something different or suppressing on one or the other. So I put some estimates for the time required to make that functionality work into the Unfuddled ticket if you want to take a look at that. It is possible for us to set up a way, basically what we can set up is we can split out the main image and in the teaser image fields so that there's actually two separate fields and then you control them separately. That is an option.
But for the purpose of our webinar today, right now we don't have the functionality to do that. So
exactly.
Our suggestion would be to continue to use the large image. It may seem large to other people, but I would like to remind folks that that really is the enticing aspect of why we put those images in there.
Right.
But work towards maybe looking at options to see if there's something else we can do. But it would be great also if you reminded folks how to add an image to the main body, as excuse me, to the content body, as opposed to just making it the main image. Can we do a review of how to do that?
We can absolutely do a review of that. So the first thing that I want to say is if you're adding an image to the top of it, a main image on a page right now, the format, you're thinking more wide instead of tall. So you're thinking more landscape or even kind of a wider aspect ratio than landscape, as opposed to portrait in terms of images that you're putting up there. What I can do as a quick fix is, Elizabeth, if you're interested in this, is I can force a crop to square on the teaser images, and then that way it'll look nice. But you and I can talk about that. Separately and decide if that quick fix would actually be good for people or not good for people, and then we can put that in place until you decide if you want to adjust the feature itself. But for the time being, what you want to do is think about wide aspect for that main image as opposed to square or tall aspect for that main image. Now, if you want to put an image into the body of the content, let me switch back and become Rainbow Bright again so that I'm not changing the Wisconsin Leads site. And I'll go into my demo local league that I can do whatever I want to with. And so let's look at this. So the About page, which is in the front page here, it is listed here on the front page. It doesn't have an image on it yet. So I could add images in a couple of different ways. Let's click on the About page first. I do have an image in the body right here, and we'll add another one. If I wanted to add a main image that would then show up in the sidebar, I would use the main image field. And then let me just find an image here from the library as opposed to uploading a new image. If I go ahead and save that, All right, so now I have this big image. It's more landscape, but ideally it'd be even more wide than this. And then if I go to the home page and scroll down, I will see that image in the About teaser here on the home page. So that was something that people were already identifying as, well, they kind of like to maybe see different images or a different aspect. And Elizabeth, you and I can talk about a potential quick fix for that. But for adding images into the main body, so I just went to edit this page. And here's my main body. Oh, I'm on the home page, sorry. I don't want to edit that one. I actually want to go to the About page and edit that one. So I'll click on New Draft here. And now I'll bypass this image that I already stuck in here and go down a little bit lower, place my cursor. So this looks like a great place to place a new image. And now I've placed my cursor where I want that image to begin. If I wanted the image to be after that paragraph, I'd put it here. So you just kind of place your cursor at the spot where that image begins. Whether you're going to float it left or right so that text wraps around it, that you'll handle later. But right now all you're doing is saying, this is where I want the image to start. And then you're going into your media library by clicking on this Add Media link right here. And now you can upload a new file if you want to from your system by clicking Choose File and then finding it in your file system. You can, if there's an image that is somewhere else on the internet and you have the URL for that image, you could place that URL right here. You can also do it for YouTube or Vimeo if you want to add a video in here. You would use the URL for that. Now, this particular one, using a URL, it's very important that you make sure that you have permission to grab the image that you're grabbing and that you're not stealing somebody else's intellectual property. So that's something to just keep in mind. You can find any files that members of your league have uploaded. If you have 5 or 6 webmasters, maybe they've been adding material to your site. You can find the content that they've added in here, the assets that they've added, or you can look at just the ones that you've uploaded. And then from there, you can also click on All Files, which shows you everything, all of the assets that have been uploaded to Milo. And you can search for material that you might be interested in. So in this case, I'm actually just going to grab one of these. Oh, I love this one, Your Vote Counts. This is great. So I'm just going to grab this particular one, and I'll click Submit. Now, before I submit, I am going to be kind and just pay attention to the metadata about this particular image. And I'm going to make sure that it doesn't, in the description, that it doesn't say something like copyright, LWV Sussex County, please speak with rain before using. So I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't say something like that. If it does, then I'm going to be nice and I'm going to have that conversation. If it doesn't, then it's fine to make use of it. So I will click Submit, and boom, there's the image. Now it doesn't look great right now because it's just kind of plopped into the text. If I go ahead and save this, let me go ahead and do that. If I go ahead and save this and look at it, that looks kind of gross, and it's not how I actually want this to play out. So at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and make adjustments to that. So I clicked on View Draft. What I actually want to do is Edit Draft. So now I'm going to find that image. I'll click on it, and now I can resize it. I was showing that earlier. Maybe this should be a little bit smaller. It probably should. It's a very well-made graphic. It's very easy to read. So it doesn't need to be huge. It can be a little bit smaller. And then from there, now that it's highlighted, I can also style it. Under these styles, there are options to float images left or right. So from here, I can make that choice to float an image to one side or the other. And what that means is that the text will wrap around it. So let's float it to the right. I think that'll look pretty nice. And now you can immediately see it's popped itself over to the right and the text wraps around it. So now if I go ahead and save that and scroll down, now that looks much better than it did before. If I wanted an image, one thing that might be interesting to people is how could they put an image that spans across the entire top of the content area. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to remove the main image so that there isn't a main image here. So I'll just scroll down to the main image field and click remove. And then in here at the very top, even above jump to history, now this will appear under the title, but it's at the very top of my page. I'll place my cursor where I want the image to be, which is the very top. And now I'm going to go ahead and look for files. Maybe I'll look for slideshow images because I know that those are going to be big rather than uploading a new image. And so here's one that should be pretty big. It's labeled as a banner. I'll go ahead and take that one. That's a great one. Submit that. Make sure that I like my alt text, which is what the user will experience if they can't see the image. And now, wow, there's a really big image up at the top, and that's great. I'm just going to leave it like that because that's how I want it to look, and I'll go ahead and save it. And now, again, reminder, it shows up under About. It'll show up under the Share widget. If you want it above the title and above the Share widget, then it needs to be the main image. But it's right there up at the top, and it takes up the whole space. So that's how you could add some kind of a banner either at the top or somewhere in the midpoint of your content. Any questions about that? All right, this is a beautiful image. Who was this one that came from LWVC, or did one of the leagues create that?
No, it looks like it's created by one of our leagues.
Well, it's a great image.
Love it.
All right. Any other questions? We have a couple more minutes.
Well, thanks, Rain. That was super informative. I learned something about the images I didn't know that I could do. So thank you. That helps me as well.
Excellent. Perfect. All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
Sounds like that's all for today. So, Rain, thank you so much for taking the time. And Andrea, thank you for joining us. I'm glad we got some of your questions answered. And I think that by recording this and sharing the recording will help some others that have similar questions but were unable to join us today. So just checking in with Amaris. Do you have any final questions, Amaris, you'd like to add?
I do not.
Well, fantastic. Questions have been answered during our Q&A session, so we have succeeded. So thank you so much to everyone on the call today, and look for the recording soon on our website. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.